Hey, hello. How's everybody doing today? Let's get started. If you have questions for me, you can put them in the chat box on Zoom if you're watching on Zoom. And if you're watching me on YouTube, let's do that piece as well. If you're watching on YouTube, you can put that in the chat box as well. And hopefully, there we are. Okay, cool. All right, so it looks like we've got questions on both, which is great. So let's get started. Give me 1 second just to get organized here. All right, very cool. Okay, we're ready. So I'm going to start with questions from the Zoom audience. Zoom audience always gets priority, then we'll move over to YouTube from there. So anyways, first question. An investor I contacted through email got back to me stating that I should let them know when I have a lead investor and a negotiated term sheet. We do not have a lead investor and we were looking to use a safe note. Is this an appropriate reply to tell them this? Okay, that's the first question. Then the second piece of the question is, and what type of response is this likely to elicit from them? Why might they be asking for a lead investor? Is it appropriate to ask them for a cap and discount rate for the safe? Okay, well, here's the deal. The fact that they are telling you that they want a lead investor says they don't want to lead. There are two types of, just like in anything in life, there are leaders and followers. And we're talking about investors. There are lead investors and there are follower investors. So they want somebody else to set the terms before they may. And I emphasize the words may decide to invest because they may not. And here's the brutal, ugly truth for you. And I'm being really, really honest. You don't have anything here. You need a lead investor. You need somebody who is going to step forward and say, hey, I'm in. It's great when people say they're going to follow. It's not worth much, quite frankly. I can't tell you how many people said, yeah, find a lead and come back to us. And then they never do anything. So I'm sorry to be so blunt and direct, but that's just the reality of it. Go find yourself a lead investor. You can go back to them with anything you want. It's not going to mean anything. They're not likely to respond. And if they do, it's not going to mean anything. You need the lead investor. So go find yourself that lead investor. Then you'll have an ability to go find hopefully a second and third investor after that. If you need them, maybe somebody will take your whole round. Okay, let's go to our next question. Okay, and it's a three-parter, which is cool. I think actually it's put, okay, here it is. Part one of this. Can you please recommend a US-based lawyer that can help me navigate the fundraising process and documents? No, I will not do that because I don't know you. But what I will tell you is if you're looking for a lawyer to help you navigate the fundraising process, there are plenty of good ones out there. I don't know where you are in the world. I guess you're in the US somewhere. So there are plenty of good ones. You want somebody who's done this before. You want somebody who has experience doing this. This would be ideal. Is somebody who has negotiated several term sheets before, has experience doing it before. That's great. Usually there are larger firms. There are tons of them here in the Silicon Valley that do this type of work. So you can look to those firms as one option for you. I'm going to go from best to, I'm not going to call it worst, but most expensive to least expensive. The second most expensive way to do this is find yourself a firm that isn't like the top tier firms or the rates are pretty expensive, etc. Is a smaller boutique kind of firm. And those are like sometimes single partnerships. You can find those. Second option is maybe a firm that is more discount oriented. One that I've heard pretty good things about is a firm called Presidio Law. That's the second option. Third option, to figure out documents and stuff like that for your company. I don't know whether that's what you're talking about, but let's say it is. The third option is, at least to set up the company properly and set up whatever incorporation documents you have properly, is using a firm like Gust.com. They're quite inexpensive to do this type of work with. So that is another way to do this. So I've given you now 3 or 4 different options, of ways to go. The second question on the list here is we have a patent pending. So if the investor expects to get a 30x on their investment, regardless of if there's a patent or not, then what is the point of handing over my patent? Well, here's the deal. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to build a company or are you trying to have a patent? The answer is you're trying to build a company. And if you need to raise money, then you need to raise money. Period, end of story. The patent, and I hate to burst your bubble on this, but maybe I'm going to be bubble burster today or whatever, but I hate to burst your bubble, but patents aren't worth much at the beginning of a company's life. They really aren't. And I know that might be contrary to what you think, but it's just not a huge deal because how are you going to enforce it? It's not so easy to enforce these things. So the reality is, yes, include the patent. If it's part of the company's IP, include it. Don't play games here. You're trying to raise money. The minute you start playing games with people and you say, this isn't included or that isn't included or whatever, I'm out as an investor. Because there's a million other things to do. And it's like investors always say, there's always another deal. And if you're too difficult to deal with, if you're going to be a problem, then investors aren't going to want to work with you. Sorry. So I hate to burst your bubble on that. I would not do that. Third question, why do I need to use the pre-seed investors for future funding? Example, seed round. Why could I not reach out to other investors, or is that a condition in the term sheet? I don't really understand what you're trying to say there. Whatever investors are going to invest are going to invest. Seed is just a name. It's more the amount of money that you're trying to raise is going to determine who you're going to raise the money from. So find investors that invest at your stage, that invest the amount of money that you're looking to raise. And just to review, if we're talking about very small amounts of money, let's say less than $100,000, $100,000 or less, that's probably friends, family, and your own money. Somewhere, I don't know, 100, 200 to 500, 6, maybe $1 million, something like that, maybe a little more, is friends, family, angel investors, some combination of those things. We get to kind of the million to, let's say, 3, 4 million. Those could be either smaller micro VCs or seed stage investors or whatever. When we start getting above 3, it's going to be another group of venture capitalists that invest in early stage startups. When you start getting beyond that, it just keeps morphing out. But you have to find, there's kind of like this intersection of things you're looking for. You're looking for geographical proximity to where you are. It's always better. You're looking for people that invest the size of money you're trying to raise. And you're looking for people that invest in your area of discipline. So if you're pitching me your software deal and I am a medical device investor, I'm not interested. If you're pitching me your early stage deal and I'm a late stage investor, even if I invest in your space, I'm not interested. Get the idea? All right. Hope that helps. All right, next question. If you have questions for me, you can put them in the chat box on Zoom or YouTube. Either one works. And if you want priority going forward, there is my free group for startup CEOs, 02 Pitch. It's free, lifetime for free. Doesn't get any better than that. So you get access on this, you get involved in a community, a large community that's growing stronger every day. And you can also get some access to some free material and courses, and you get to interact with me more. And if you really want to amp it up even more, and you want to go even faster, then join my paid community, Zero to Pitch Gold, all of $125 a month. Great bargain. You can actually talk to me and work with me in office hours every single day of the week if you want, and you'll get better very fast. And it's a community of people just like you who are trying to raise money and grow their startups just like you. Okay, let's go to our next question. Hello, my name is Israel, and I'm in search of an angel investor for my indie game. I started doing it with some collaborators, but now I have no money and I'm in need of money to keep going. I'm imagining is the question. Keep development moving forward. Okay. The seed fund is $140,000 and expected to finish in 10 months. I have been reaching several investors, but no one answers. Could you help me? I also have a slide deck and a small video of the game. Okay. The best way I can help you is give you good advice. I'm not an expert in this particular area, I would tell you. But what I can tell you is that in today's world, like it or not, that it's not enough to have an idea. And it sounds like you're kind of at the idea stage. Maybe you've got a prototype, but to start raising money, just like I said, small amounts of money, $100,000, that kind of money. And I know $100,000 is a lot of money for anybody, but this is probably going to be you, your friends, your family. That's how you're going to have to start. I just hate to tell you that, but that's how you're likely to start. So I think it's going to be very difficult for you to get moving in terms of what you're trying to do. I don't think a seed investor is going to be interested. I could be wrong. There's always exceptions to these things, but I think your best bet is your friends, your family, and your own money. Sorry. Okay, next question. Okay, Slava Ukraine. Okay, I am pro-Ukraine, even though our idiotic government is not pro-Ukraine right now, which makes me really sad. But I am pro-Ukraine. I feel it's a travesty what our country's going to do to you guys. So, anyways, with that, they say fake it until you make it. Where is the line between vision and deception? Okay, that's a pretty broad statement. I don't think you should fake things. I think you should, I think you should make things. I think you should get things done because um, you've got to, you've got to prove stuff. I will tell you a quick story. So it's a very, I don't know if he's famous or not, but this person I got introduced to years ago by one of my investors, a guy named Regis McKenna. And Regis was one of the early people involved with Apple. I think he was advising Steve Jobs. He's a real pretty interesting guy, and I really enjoyed meeting him. And I was telling him what we were doing and how we were trying to look bigger than we were, which goes to your fake it until you make it thing. He goes, "Yeah, you guys remind me." This other company, someone in the space I was in called Microchip. He goes, "You guys remind me of Microchip back in the day." And then he was telling me the story about Home Depot, about how Home Depot at the beginning, when they first started, they had all these empty boxes that they would put on their shelves just to look like they had more stuff than they had. So yeah, you can do stuff like that, but at the end of the day, if you don't start executing, you don't start getting things done, then none of it matters. So get things done, start executing. Um, that's the most important thing of all of this. The fake it till you make it stuff, it's not going to get you very far at the end of the day. Okay, the next question. If you really can't do it in 1 year, but now it is not there, and you say it works, is that bad? Yeah, it's bad because you're lying. If you tell me as an investor that you have something and you tell me it works and it doesn't work, I'm going to find out. And then you've lost everything. The big lesson here, all of this stuff, is integrity matters. It matters a huge, huge, huge amount. If you don't have integrity, you don't have anything. The minute, and you can't turn integrity on and off. The minute that an investor senses you don't have integrity, no matter how good what you have might be, how exciting it is, how charismatic you are as a leader, whatever those things are, they're out. Don't lose your integrity. Do things the right way. Then you don't have to lie. You don't have to hide things from people. You can be honest with people. It's okay to make mistakes. Nobody's expecting to be perfect. None of those things. But what they, look, you're competing against some really tough competition, no matter what you're doing. And it's not just, interestingly enough, it's not just in your space. You're competing against other people in other spaces for money. And just as a reminder, for every 100 face-to-face meetings a typical angel investor or VC takes, they will invest in about one meeting. That's it, one. So it's really not so easy. And if you lose your integrity, you're done with. Okay, let's go to the next question. Hey, Brett, how can I get you to invest in my startup? I would say the odds are very remote. If I invest, it's only in things that I know. That's it. So my criterion is pretty narrow. My guess is, if you're asking me here, it's probably not something that I am expert in. And by expert, I mean something that I spent most of my career doing. I help lots of different startups in lots of different spaces, but investing is different than helping. That's what I would tell you. Okay, let's go to the next thing. Let's say you bootstrapped a business to a reasonable success. Nothing close to VC standards. Well, you'd be surprised. is all I would tell you. So don't sell yourself short. So if you're reasonably successful, congratulations, you're probably doing quite well. That business gave you a variant idea that could be much bigger and is a fit for VC funding. Okay, great. I don't know what the question is there. It's in the next piece. Would a VC consider it since you could not build a bigger business earlier? Of course. Here's a couple comments. Back to that 100 to 1 thing. I think it's about 90 something percent of all businesses, maybe 99% of all businesses, never take a nickel of outside funding. Zero, zilch, nothing. So if you've had a successful run, bootstrapping a business, which, by the way, congratulations, it's hard to bootstrap. And it's nothing to feel inferior about to bootstrap. Most people do that. So feel really good about what you've done. And now you have an idea that's bigger and needs more money. Then great, then go get the more money. And if it fits what investors want, then they'll invest. It's as simple as that. But it's not so easy. Just because it's bigger doesn't mean it's going to fit. So there's a lot of barriers between you and raising money, is what I would tell you. It's not an easy thing. And just because investors say no doesn't mean you don't have a great idea or whatever. And there's a whole bunch of various things. But look, if you've been successful, success helps. It's always good to be successful. If you're successful, I'm going to be much more interested in investing. And I think that's the way most investors are. If you're unsuccessful, and you have a track record of not being successful, then it's one more barrier. So what you're thinking about when you're raising money is, how do I reduce my risk and how do I reduce my potential investors' risk? That's the way you do it. So I hope that helps. Okay, more questions. More questions. This was impromptu today, and we don't have very many questions today, which is kind of interesting. So, anyways, if you have questions for me, if you're watching me on Zoom, which is my Zero to Pitch audience, you can put a question in the chat box or the Q&A box on Zoom, preferably the chat box. And if you are watching on YouTube, you can put a question for me in the chat box, and I'll be happy to answer that for you. All right, questions. Come on, you got to have some questions for me. Wow, no questions. This could be interesting. Okay. Well, we may have a short session today. Oh, always works. Okay, hello from Zimbabwe. Okay, cool. Well, hello back from California. Is there a question for me from Zimbabwe or from anywhere in the world that's watching today? All right, if you have a question for me, then please go ahead and ask your question. Hello from Sydney. In the early days of fundraising, must be very early there in Sydney. I'm guessing what, about 5 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, something like that. Well, thank you for getting up early. I sent a really bad deck to investors. Then now I've got a good deck. Okay, good. Can I resend the deck to them? Yeah, you can. Just a quick little history story lesson. No is only no for now. In other words, investors, they may have seen your deck, passed on it, whatever. And if you have a better version of the story, something's changed about the story, maybe they're interested. In my particular case, our second one who invested, we originally raised $12 million for our first round of funding. And our second investor, we had pitched to various partners in their fund 3 times before they said yes. So yeah, people say no all the time, and no is only no for now. So yeah, go ahead. Now, there are 2 pieces to this. If you're going to go send them a deck, the first piece is, what does the cold email look like, or the email cover letter that you're going to send them? I have a video on this. You can find it on the YouTube channel. And I highly, highly, highly recommend you watch it, because it's all about how do we create and develop a good cold email letter that's going to get people's attention, get them to open and get them to read it, and then hopefully get them to look at your deck. And then the deck has to be concise and to the point. So I hope that helps. Okay, next question. All right. An investor I contacted through email got back to me stating that I should let them know when I have a lead investor. I think I just answered this. In fact, I know I just answered this. I answered this already. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to answer it again. I answered it at the beginning. So you must have missed it. There'll be a replay of this. You can find it on YouTube, and then hopefully I'll post it in the Zero to Pitch group as well. But yeah, I already answered that one. So I'm not going to answer it again. Okay. All right. There are 10 founders. You don't know anything about their startups, but can you ask 3 questions to each founder? Come on. What would you ask? I don't like the hypotheticals here. Come on. If you have a specific question of something you're trying to learn, then go ahead and ask me. All right, let's move on to the next question. Now, some VC companies have these pre-seed rounds. They offer 100K for a percentage ownership. Is that worth it? or overkill and unnecessary to give some shares that early. Okay, you are trying to raise money. Okay, you are, let's say, I don't care what it is. Let's say it's $100,000. What is it in exchange for? Do you think out of the goodness of somebody's heart, they're just going to give you the money without nothing in return? It doesn't work that way. So yeah, it's worth it. If you're trying to raise the $100,000, then of course it's worth it. It's just a matter of what are your options. You can raise money from your friends, your family, and yourself. And even then, you're going to have to break up. You're not going to just say, okay, give me your money. Maybe it's a loan if it's from your parents or whatever. Sure, you could do that, but you're going to have to pay back the loan. So there's always terms. It's never for free. And if you're raising money from, your friends or whatever, and let's say they don't want a loan, they want a piece of the company, you're going to have to figure out what that is. So yeah, you're going to give up equity. And as you go on, you're going to give up more equity. And if it's a seed round from smaller investors or whatever, then yeah, you're going to give up a percentage. So by definition, it's fair. It's what will the market bear? That's the answer to your question. Okay, any other questions for me? You can put them in the chat box if you're watching on Zoom. My Zoom audience, which is my Zero to Pitch audience, which is part of my group, Zero to Pitch, my free group for startup CEOs, 100% free. Doesn't get better than this, 100% free for life. There are links on YouTube if you want to join. All you have to do is click the link, answer a few questions, and you're in. And if you want to take it up to the next level, you can join my paid group for startup CEOs, Zero to Pitch Gold, where there's even more good stuff, including being able to work with me every day in my daily office hours. If you join now, in an hour and a half, I have my next office hours. So you could be part of that if you join. $125 a month, you can leave anytime you want. And there's a great group of startup CEOs just like you there already, a lot of camaraderie, a lot you can learn. There are classes, all sorts of great things there available to you. Okay, let's go on to our next question. If the company is making good profit and I want to grow fast, then is it better to raise or get a loan? I think a loan is better. Well, maybe it is. Too broad a question for me to answer, to be honest with you. Maybe it is, but here's the thing with loans. And this was something one of my investors told me when I raised a loan, interestingly enough. And he said to me, you know what? Loans always come due at the wrong time. That was one of his things. That was one of his truisms. And what he meant by this is there's principal and interest, right? So you're paying interest. Maybe you've done an interest only at the beginning. We actually had a pretty good deal going. We had interest only at the beginning and then the principal, and the interest rate was pretty low. But you know what? You got to pay it back. And guess what happens when you pay it back? Your burn rate goes up. So there are trade-offs here. And it's really, which one's better for you, in this particular moment. If you can raise, typically loans, I would tell you, and again, there are variations on this, but typically loans, are almost like bridges, where we're gonna have a loan of some sort because I need more runway. That's why we did the loan, because we could see that we weren't going to hit our milestones to get to the next round of funding. So we wanted to increase our runway. What better way to do it? Get a loan. Except here's the thing with loans. Nobody's going to give you a loan when you need the money. So you have to kind of be looking forward, far enough to be able to figure out when you're going to need the money before you need it. So fortunately for me, I had a great controller, and Tina was way ahead of the game, and she recognized this way ahead of time. She was doing the right things from a forecasting standpoint. When we met, she said, hey, I think we're going to need a loan. Looked at the numbers. She was 100% right. Got the loan. And we were able to do it before we needed the money, which was the key reason we were able to get the loan. Okay, next question from our Ukrainian friend. I am a founder from Ukraine. What is the discount to the assessment if I am in the Ukraine now? I honestly don't know. I really don't. So this is like way beyond, something that I could tell you. The only way you're going to find this answer out is just by talking to investors and seeing. That's the honest truth. Obviously, right now, um, things have taken a turn for the worse for your country, and my heart breaks for everybody there because there's no good reason for what's happening. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see the way things go. I'm hopeful that the Europeans step up for you and jump in because it does not look like the United States is going to be your friend, sadly, going forward. And it breaks my heart, to see this. But this is what we all have to deal with right now. So I don't know how that's going to affect you, but I would imagine if for whatever reason um, that the Europeans don't step up in the right way and everybody abandons Ukraine, it's not going to be good. I hope that doesn't happen. I really do. And hopefully things will hopefully the Europeans will step up. Hopefully there will be enough public pressure here in the US. And maybe some Republican senators and Congress people will grow a spine and stand up to this idiot. But for now, we got to deal with it. So anyway, sorry, I don't know what to tell you. It's more about math. Yeah, I know. I understand. I just don't know the answer, is what I'm telling you. Okay. Any other questions? I'll be happy to answer them for you in the chat box on Zoom or on YouTube, either one. Happy to help. Is it necessary to incorporate or start an LLC before raising funds? Yeah, it is. If you're trying to raise funds, depending upon who you're trying to raise funds from, you're going to have to incorporate. Like if we're trying to raise funds from and we're trying to divide up shares, it's more difficult as an LLC than it is as a C corp, for example. So it's just the way the companies are constituted. It's just more confusing. So the way that I would recommend doing this is, personally, set yourself up as a C corp. It's not super expensive to do it. Do it in Delaware, which is the best place. It's the most business friendly place to do it. And if you're trying to raise money, you're all set. As I was saying earlier, you can either hire, I'll go from most expensive to least expensive. The most expensive way to do this is hire a expensive lawyer, to help you. They will set you up perfectly. The second most expensive way to do this, and there are lawyers, these are typically in larger law firms. There are tons of them here in the Silicon Valley and around the United States, I would imagine too. Second way to do this is with a more boutique law firm. I was recommending Presidio Law as a group that I've heard good things about. And then the third way to do it, if you're just starting out, is there are services out there. The one that I like the best is Gust.com. They will do all of this for you. Most of the stuff is what's called boilerplate, which means there's nothing really unique about your company. Everybody has the documents ready to go, but you'll have it set up properly. So anyways, that's my answer to your question. Okay, next question. Okay, I'm an Australian company. This is from our Australian friend again. Then if I register in the USA as a Delaware C Corp, then I can raise funds from the USA VC who only wants to invest in the USA. Even though I want to kickstart the company in Australia. Yeah, that's probably true. That's probably true. Makes life easier. So the challenge is, and here's the challenge with this line of thought. Now I recognize that maybe the Australian VC industry isn't what the US VC industry is. However, it is again, proximity is one of the things. So if you're raising a small amount of money at the beginning, and let's say your early stage, which most people that are probably listening to this are, and you're trying to raise money from an investor here in the United States, let's say California, which is where most of the investors are, but they're all over. And you're 16, 17, 18 hours away, whatever the time difference is, and an ocean and a 16-hour plane flight away in Australia, that's going to be tough. It's not easy to do this. You're going to have something just overwhelmingly good, to do it, is what I would tell you. It's going to be easier to find people in your own country. I know it might be harder. I know the environment might not be the best, but that's where I would start, quite frankly, is try and find the money there. Look there first, because it's just going to be harder for you being in Australia, trying to raise money here. It's just not going to be an easy one to do. Okay, next question. Why is Delaware preferred to incorporate? Because it's the most business friendly. It has the best terms from a business standpoint. So that's why it's preferred that you're in Delaware versus other places to incorporate. And then if you're dealing with institutional investors, they're used to it as well. Delaware law is preferred, so that's why. Okay, let's move on to the next question. I started a small accounting, tax, and booking firm. Okay, good for you. Congratulations. What steps should I take in order to reach a larger client base? Okay, my best answer for this, without knowing what you're trying to do, is read this book. It's a great book on this subject. You could read it, order it today. It'll be at your home tomorrow, and you could read it over the weekend and you'd be up and running by Monday or Tuesday. The book is called Traction by Gabriel Weinberg. It is a fantastic book which walks you through step by step the process of doing this. So highly, highly, highly recommend that book. Next question. If I get a pre-seed round, how often will I communicate with the investors? What kind of reports do they usually ask for? Well, when we're dealing with small, it depends on the investors, by the way. That's the other thing I would tell you. If we're dealing with friends, family, those types of investors, and yourself, you could literally, send them a report, maybe a newsletter once a month, or no, I wouldn't even do once a month. That's way too often. Sorry. I would say once a quarter. I would do like a quarterly newsletter, about a page and a half of highlights, lowlights, tell them what's going on with the business, and that will suffice. And if you have a large investor group, this is a nice way to communicate with a large investor group. I've seen this done really, really well. If you have more professional investors, angel investors, probably have to do more than that, I would imagine. Depending upon the angel investor, it might be everything from a report to some sort of update meetings where you update them. Ideally, you want these spread out because you'll spend all your time managing your investors if you're not careful. So I would stay away from the once a month requirements or whatever. Try and make it once a quarter if you can. That way you're not spending all your time doing this. It'll be better for you if you do it this way. So it varies. And then, so that might be a report with some slides about what's going on. If you're dealing with VCs, then the requirements get bigger and better, where it would be a slide review of every area of the business and a financial review as well. That's the way that typically VCs, at least in my experience, want to see it. And you'd have to do waterfall charts and all these other fun things to do. And you'd have to probably have a board meeting, because if you're going to have VCs, you're going to likely have a board of directors, and you'd be prepared for a board meeting. Look, all these things are not overwhelming. It's just, how do you deal with them? So anyways, that's what I would tell you. Next question. As a founder, you have to be ready to meet up in person very often. I don't know who you're talking about meeting with as a founder, so I don't know how to answer that question. Please repeat that book and author name that you mentioned previously. Yeah. Okay. The book is called Traction by Gabriel Weinberg. It is available on Amazon. It is a great book on this subject. Highly recommend it. Google it, order it, download it, whatever way you want to do it. I think there's even an audio version of the book, and you could be starting today. Okay, advice I'm looking for in creating a ship design with manufactured company. Can you tell me where to start? No, I have no idea. I'm not a ship design expert before I start. No, I really can't. If you're looking for, it depends upon what you're looking for. Maybe I shouldn't be so glib in my answer. But if you're trying to figure out a plan and a strategy, um, the best way that I can recommend doing that is joining my free or paid group for startup CEOs, Zero to Pitch. The free group, you get reasonably far. There's a free course in there, Zero to Pitch Lite, which will start you on that path of what you need to do, kind of develop a plan and a strategy. And if you're interested, then you can hop over to the paid site, all of $125 a month, complete the course, get advice and help from me, and you'd be up and running and moving. But it's pretty hard with the question you've asked in terms of what's going on, but that's what I would recommend. Okay, next question. Do pre-seed investors require a board seat at this early stage? Or do they need a board seat later in the rounds? Okay, well, it's all about money. It's all about who you're dealing with. And it was interesting. I was having this discussion with somebody yesterday, and we were talking about a company that he was interested in investing in as a seed investor. And he was talking about, do you think I could get a board seat? And I said, I wouldn't give you a board seat as a seed investor for what he was asking for. So look, if you can avoid giving out a board seat, avoid it. Boards for early stage companies they're just, they're not what you think they are. They're usually kind of worthless, usually kind of a waste of your time. So I personally would not recommend it. It's not going to help you the way you think it's going to help you. So if you can avoid it, don't do it. Stay away from it, if you can. Typically for angel rounds, and smaller rounds of funding, you don't need to have a board. You can have a one-man board in the United States with you as the board member. Make your life easy. Don't complicate it. Don't do it because it's just going to make things challenging and more of a problem for you. You don't need it. As you start dealing with VCs, then yeah, VCs are going to demand a board seat. And sometimes, larger angel investors are going to demand observation rights on your board. Fine. But if you can avoid having them on your board, avoid it because it just makes your life easier. Okay, next question. I'm on a mission to automate small businesses in Nigeria, Africa. Well, congratulations. And the rest of the developing world, excuse me, applying a smart but unique strategy. What steps should I take to get the needed funds? Okay, I've answered various versions of this question today several times. I'll answer it again for you. If you're just starting out, it is really, and this is just the way the world has changed, but it's just the reality of the world. It's going to be very difficult to raise money beyond your friends and your family at the beginning. It's your friends, family, and your own money to start a business. Then once you start making progress and you start meeting some milestones, you can start raising money from other people. Maybe. Most businesses never do. They are their own money all the way through. So I'm sorry to be the burster of bubbles today, but I seem to be pretty good at that. But that's kind of just the reality. Sorry. Okay, any other questions for me? You can put them in the chat box on Zoom or YouTube. Thank you, my Zoom audience, which is part of Zero to Pitch, my free paid group, my free group of startup CEOs, free for life. It doesn't get any better than that. There are about 1,500 people in the group right now. Lots you can learn from other members of the group. There are free courses in there, all these other fun things in there that you have access to as well. So all these various things that you get. So pretty cool group. And if you want to take it up a notch and join my paid group, Zero to Pitch Gold, all of $125 a month. Then you can be part of that group, which you can then work with me in a more detailed fashion than we're working today. We're in webinar format. In that group, we're in meeting format, a lot better, a lot more interactive, a lot more that we can accomplish. Plus, there are larger, more detailed courses there, mastermind group, all these fun things, all for $125 a month. Okay, good question coming. At what stage do you need a CFO for your stuff? Much later than you probably think. That's kind of interesting, by the way. At the beginning, you do not need a CFO when you're starting out. Maybe it's just an accountant to do the books, somebody like that. And then you'll graduate to a fractional controller, somebody who's maybe more detailed than a controller. CFO is kind of one of the last pieces of your executive team that you build out. So I don't know what the range is, but I'm going to guess it's and you want to do this as late as possible, by the way, because if you can manage things with just you and your controller for a long period of time, do it. Why spend the money? I had a fantastic controller. She could scale, so if you could do that, that's great. So as long as you can, but it's probably somewhere and these are rough numbers, I would say $5 to $10 million a year range. You're probably going to need a CFO. And again, it's going to depend on the complexity of your business and what you're trying to do. Okay, next question. Why many investors are interested in SaaS predominantly? Well, it's because they like SaaS companies. There are investors in all different flavors and shapes of companies. Now you're seeing a lot of investors, quote unquote, interested in AI. It varies. Okay, next question. Considering the modern world, consumers are best at what we do. What do you think we consume the most? I don't know. Probably information, quite frankly, right now, and attention. That seems to be the big chip in the world today is attention. That's the big commodity. If you look at the most valuable companies in the world, they are primarily selling attention today. So think about that. Next question. Bootstrapping startup. Based on your much helpful videos, I realize we are not VCable. When do you start paying a decent salary to founders? Well, the high level answer is when you can afford it. So the way that I would look at things, here's my stack from first to last in terms of who gets paid. The first people that get paid market rate salaries are your employees. The second group that gets paid market rate salaries are your founders, your co-founders. The third group is you. You're last because you're the CEO. Doesn't mean you don't get paid anything, but you get paid something, but you don't get paid full market salary until you can afford it. So it's just simple. You got to look at your cash flow. You got to look at your burn rate. You got to look at all these various things that are going on. And it's when I can afford it. That's when. Okay, more questions. If I was 20 years old and I had $1 million in hand, what would I be working on? Finishing my college degree. In all seriousness, great. I have the money. That's cool. But education is everything. Learn, especially if you're 20 years old. Learn. If my daughter, that's what I would tell my daughter, who is 20 years old, by the way, right now, is learn, which is exactly what she's doing. Okay, next question. This is in response to my CEO salaries. It seems that there's always a better, amazing way to spend money than paying me salary. Yeah, that's why I'm laughing. It's so true. At the same time, you do need to be able to pay the rent. You do need to be able to live. And you do need to eventually get yourself up to market rate. It's just a balancing act in all these things. So one of the things, as maybe a next level answer to your question, is the other thing that you want to do is develop a budget and make sure your budgeting stuff and make sure you're forecasting your revenue, forecasting your spend, and then that's going to tell you when this is going to happen. And then be disciplined. Be disciplined in your approach. Okay, I have time for maybe one more question today, one more question. So if you have that question, pop it into Zoom or the Zoom chat box or the YouTube chat box, and I will answer it for you right now. One more question. Just one. As a final reminder for my YouTube audience, if you are not a member of my free group for startup CEOs, join it. Zero to Pitch. It is free for life. It does not get any better than that. There are links below this video to it. There are links on my YouTube channel for it. Click the link, answer a few questions, and you are in. That's it. And if you're interested in taking it up a notch from there, the way that we do that is join the paid group I have for Startup CEO Zero to Pitch Gold, all of $125 a month, and you get a lot more interaction with me. I have daily office hours. My next one's in about an hour. You can work with me, start really moving faster, and get a ton more done. Okay, how is founder dilution calculated? Same way as any other dilution. If founder A is at 10% and founder B is at 15% and founder C is at 20%. Okay, well, I'm not going to go through all the math, but let's say, let me do this very easily for you. So let's say that you and your co-founders at the beginning of 100%, and you raise maybe a small round of funding, $100,000, which typically you give up probably about 10% of your company for. Well, as the post money, let's say you raise $100,000. And then the investors, which might be you, by the way, would get 10% of the company in this particular answer that I'm giving you, and then the founders, as founders shares, would have 90%. That's the way dilution will work. Post money valuation would be $1 million. 100,000 divided by 0.1 is $1 million. So that's the way it would work. Very simple math. Okay. All right. Now I got a ton of questions. What do I think of crowdfunding? I've never done it, so I can't really answer it. VCs seem to want revenue before they invest. Yep, that's just the way the world is. I'm doing these super fast because I got to go in a minute. Any tips for pre-seed funding? Yeah, the more traction, the more proof points you have, the more that you can reduce investor risk, the better and easier it's going to be. We need to raise about $100,000 to perform CE and UL certification for a solar inverter. We're bootstrapping. We own our funds. We can't start selling before getting our certification. Okay. I don't know what the question is there, so I'm not going to answer it. I run a marketing company at age 17. The competition in the space is way too much. What do you think I should do? As I'm currently based on special offers. Too complicated, and I need a lot more details to be able to answer it, to be honest with you. Be disciplined is what I would tell you. All right. And then finally, last thing, thank you, Brett, on my pitch deck for the comments. Really made me a good pitch deck maker. You're welcome. Okay, very good. That's all I've got time for today. Sorry for anybody's questions I didn't answer. I'll do this again, hopefully in about another month. Thanks a lot. Take care, everybody. Lots of fun always, and good luck with what you're doing. Bye.